if you have some type of seated meditation practice and or are on some kind of self-discovery, self-development, self-mastery journey, this might be for your consideration, ideally helpful of what sometimes happens behind the scenes that not so many people talk about. I think everyone would probably be familiar that you have your own practice, you do it, try to be consistent with it. Consistency, I have found, is really a real supportive tool around our personal practice because the world is busy, it's chaotic, it's turbulent, and there's so much going on. It's so easy to get wrapped up in someone else's world cycle of thoughts, emotions, beliefs, whatever it is, including the world outside here. So, consistent practice along with your personal practice is this ongoing piece that I see happening in this self development, personal refinement journey. And behind the scenes, though, and on a very kind of personal level, there are these structures that are getting built, new structures, if you will. What do I mean? It's like you have this being, this human body, and it's a structure. Call it like a structure of a home. And when we first get onto this path, there are aspects of our home space that we have to renovate and demo because the kitchen doesn't fit our needs anymore. You know, the bedrooms and bathroom configuration don't fit right because we've changed. You know, as we start this journey in our spiritual practice, essentially we've gotten to a certain level of change that life world isn't working for us, that we're seeking something more, right, to help us go beyond. So I use this kind of metaphor of like this home physical structure where we are avidly making changes to. And when we have this consistent practice and basis, there cultivates like a stability, if you will. Dare I say foundation, because I don't want us to get too like locked and rigid with it. But there's a stability that comes from the consistency of our practice as these changes are happening, as we're knocking down walls, as we're retiling, you know, or we are putting new bathtub and toilet, you know, this is kind of happening inwardly in different areas of our life. It can be the people that you start to associate with changes, right? It could be the communication style, the conversations you have with not just coworkers, but maybe family members or loved ones kind of starts to change, right? It has a different energy, it has a different vibe, it has a different element, dimension to it, if you will. And this all kind of correlates with our inner world structures that are newly being built and also old ones getting kind of destroyed and knocked down, if you will. And I think a lot of people don't speak to that very unsettling process that is happening inwardly as we're doing our spiritual practice. I mean, that essentially, if we don't realize it, I hate to break it to you, lift the cover off the sales pitch, right? Is awakening, enlightenment process, the bliss, ecstasy, nirvana, whatever the words they use in books and classes, that gives us this sense that this is why we want to come on the journey, or we're so sick and tired of this suffering and pain in our life that, okay, we got to try something new because all this stuff I've tried and it's not working. Whatever it is that gets you onto the path. Once we start and we continue on that, we start to realize all these changes that happen within us. And so then part of the next part of the practice is navigating these changes within ourselves. And these changes are happening at the same time that life is changing, right? That is also the kind of craziness, if you will, of this path and practice. It's it's like going to graduate school, doctorate degree or PhD, and you're juggling family, you're juggling work, you're juggling commuting, you're juggling all these things in addition to this thing that you're trying to learn and grow and change yourself so that when you come through this, you know, graduate school, you have the ideal degree that you want from it, right? This is kind of the linear thought process. So it can be a lot when we are navigating these changes within ourselves, and you have partner in your life, and they're going through different things at different phases in their life. Maybe you have children, right? And then there's the parent-child relationship that you're navigating at all the different phases of that child's life that then affects you. So what I'm saying is this idealistic, very simplistic, oh, let's just sit on our meditation cushion and just meditate, and then everything will be right as rain, and we can get off our meditation cushion and just be this amazing beacon of light to the world, is all true. It's all true. And there's this, holy crap, what wall just got broken down within myself that, oh my gosh, I'm feeling this crazy draft inwardly, right? Something shifted on some meditation, right? Or some spiritual experience that you had. And then on top of that, it's okay, trying to meet deadlines for work, and a super busy season for some specific projects with high stress. All these worlds, right, are kind of spinning and interrelating in this crazy, crazy way. And there are moments where in that craziness, from our consistent meditation practice, we're like, oh my gosh, wow, that's so beautiful. We can genuinely, authentically sit in awe of it. But a lot of the times, for me, in my experience, it can feel not only chaotic, not only unsettling, but very like anxiety provoking. Like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. It's like, oh, I'm running out of breath, right? Can't even catch my breath. And that's a way of describing it, which I feel like, to point back, the whole kind of behind the scenes things are recognizing the changes we are going through, from little subtle things to real big things. And this change, this like world of change that we've, you know, uh, gotten on the vehicle of and riding the Disneyland ride of, if you will, has not only beginnings and endings, but those beginnings and endings can feel sometimes very, very viscerally like life and death, And when I say that, I get a little emotional and choked up because it's like it does. It brings up a lot of emotion, grief, loss, depression, anxiety. And so, if you're not familiar, my background is in psychotherapy. And it's been this fascinating world as I've kind of like utilized this professional aspect of psychology, the study of the mind, the ego, if you will, and then this totally other opposite side of the spiritual practice that is really shedding all ego, right? Mind, and just kind of really letting that go and letting that go and breaking those stuff down. But what I have found that's been helpful is meditation, when it's a genuine, authentic practice, has its um, like ups and downs and changes similar to human emotions, human life, human phases, right? And human development. And there are similarities in that. So what I'm sharing is when we have the capacity in our physical world in our mind structure to be able to have they have the kind of new age words of self-care, and that can be like, oh, I'm gonna go get a manicure, oh, I'm gonna go, self-care myself and get the bag I always wanted. And and for me, self-care in the realm of spiritual practice that is supportive to us is really harnessing and gaining the behavioral training, our own self-training around self-compassion, uh, gentleness, self-soothing. That's a big one. Soothing ourselves, soothing our emotions, soothing the wrathfulness of ourselves that wants to just flash and burn everyone in like some kind of forest fire, you know, and just like, I just want to burn everything down, get away from me. And genuinely, authentically, really be able to soothe ourselves and those parts of ourselves so that we can come back to center to the best of our ability so that we can continue to ride these crazy waves, with all these worlds spinning and, entering our world and leaving, whether that's the job, the relationship, family members, housing, and spiritual practice and spiritual community members too. So the irony that I have found is what has helped me on my spiritual practice and journey, what has been supportive is actually really coming back to myself in a very self-loving, self-nurturing way, right? And dead honest truth, this was like the other week. It was like I felt like I had so much to do all day, just felt like I was on the go, doing, and was getting things done. Went to martial arts practice to just kind of decompress, move the body, sweat a little bit, came back, everything was fine, and it was like time for dinner, but it was starting to get later, and I was starting to feel hangry, just like your body's like, well, my body, when it goes into hunger modes, it has venom voice come out. It's like, feed me, I'm hungry, right? And I could viscerally feel that. And as this is happening and I'm making dinner as conscientiously as I can, I just happened to spill some salt on the floor. And I'm like, oh my gosh, the last thing I need to do is clean up salt that gets gotten everywhere. And I'm trying to make dinner and I'm hungry. And the whole day has just been like a torrential of stuff to do. And literally in that moment, I took upon myself to practice my self-soothing voice. And it sounds cheesy, but I felt like I was talking to myself like a toddler. I was like, it's okay. Just get the broom. You just got to do a couple sweeps. You got dinner. It's coming right now. And this is literally the words I was saying at that specific tone, at that specific cadence. And my husband's in the room like, are you talking to me? What? I was like, no, I'm just soothing myself over here. I It's be okay. And these are things that I have really had to do in my ongoing spiritual practice because there is the need when there's all this change happening, and then add on the chaos, add on constant impermanence, which is the law of this world that we live in. Spiritual practice can feel sometimes like uh, the last thing that you can even put your mind towards. And I'm saying that when we have a consistent spiritual practice, it actually can give us the insight and the awareness. And that awareness is power, right? That's very empowering, self empowering for us to then cut through illusion, delusion, and unnecessary noise or unnecessary suffering. Like, did my inner self, ego self, absolutely want to throw a tantrum? Absolutely at that moment. And just like, instead of just throw a little bit of the salt, just like that, throw all the salt everywhere and just be done with it and just sit and pout and just go down that psychological, right, downward spiral of like giving up, right? Going into self pity. And then it's like, then we berate ourselves with this kind of self loathing, self hatred, so energy, right? And impact. And how is that not filled with suffering and more pain? So part of spiritual practice and having that is absolutely the tool, the Swiss Army knife tool, if you will, to pull from what it is that you need to effectively utilize in your life, like on a day-to-day basis. For me, that's the huge value and benefit of having spiritual practice. It That's what I have come to learn in my life. It's gone beyond the let me just sit on my meditation cushion, right? And listen to something nice and be with myself. It has come into and morphed into this place where it is my Swiss Army knife to be like, okay, take in meditation practice with mindfulness. It's like, okay, where am I feeling? Okay, I'm feeling really hungry. I feel really, really frustrated after having a super overwhelming day. Okay, this was kind of like the tolerance level that tipped me over. Okay, I see that. But how do I continue to engage self compassion, self soothing gentleness and care is something that takes tremendous strength, something that my teacher has taught me. Gentleness takes tremendous strength, tremendous willpower and control. And that's absolutely true that I found in my martial arts practice. When I work with my sensei, when I get that opportunity that he gets to throw me, his throws at his level of like refinement in the black belt world, so many like fifth degree or sixth degree black belt, is so gentle, believe it or not. And the kind of funny story that my other teacher had said is, if I had a choice of being thrown by a first degree black belt or a sixth degree black belt, I want to be thrown by the sixth degree black belt. And I think, oh gosh, when I first started training, no, 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 thank you, because the sixth degree will, pulverize my body. And as I've come to learn, that's not the case. That sixth degree black belt teacher has refined their practice, that they have so much discipline and control that when they affect their technique on a student, it's extremely gentle. Whereas the first degree black belt might be in that place where they just got their black belt, so it's like, oh, so I need to show my power. So it could be potentially dangerous. This is not I'm super overgeneralizing for this metaphor. This is not the case, always at all. But there can be first degree black belts that are just really wanting to test out their power. And so when you're like, okay, can I get thrown by you? You're like a little rag doll. You're like, oh, Jesus, like that was a lot, right? Because the refinement hasn't gotten to that point where they recognize that gentleness has tremendous power, has tremendous control, right? And takes tremendous strength to perfect, to be able to affect the individual, the other person with that, right? I don't know if you guys realize this, but each time when we meditate, we're essentially allowing light, eternity, whatever the word is you have, to wash through our being and be with our being. And that is literally like, um, and then you mix that with the Kundalini energy within our own being. It's like molten light, moving through our body, and it absolutely changes us, our structures within ourselves, for new things to be built, which is really cool. And I think just maybe in closing is another component of the self-care pieces and all that I mentioned around being able to self-soothe and have self-compassion and the gentleness is really all encapsulated in kindness. There's a interesting subtle difference between niceness and kindness that I've learned. And niceness is kind of the politically correct, very superficial. This is just something I'm supposed to do. And in the dictionary, I think it even is rooted, it comes from like a terrible root, it like comes from ignorance or something like that. Whereas kindness is rooted in this aspect of being of service. We are in a very genuine, authentic way. And when we can be kind to ourselves, imagine, how that practice can then move into relationships, situations, and environments that just, I think, will for sure help better the world a little bit more. And when we are doing kindness to ourselves, which has that very honest, truth seeking theorem underneath it, is we really have to let go of expectations for ourselves. And sometimes we don't even realize how much expectations we have on ourselves. It's, I feel like natural. People cultivate expectations. But an equation that I have learned is that expectations and serenity have an inverse relationship. So when expectations are high, serenity is probably really low. And when your expectations are low, then your serenity is probably a little bit high. So when we are doing this personal self practice, maybe look at the kinds of expectations we feel like we should be doing, how we should be doing it, how we should look when we're doing it. There's just all these ideas of how we think it should be, especially when it comes from my own mind that has like perfectionistic tendencies and what we talked about earlier. There are a lot of expectations, and expectations, if we really look at it, um, have probably a close cousin to, illusion or potential beliefs that maybe aren't true anymore. You know, beliefs sometimes are held on to like they're really rigidly, like it's concrete. And if we take a look at the world around us and how it's evolving, revolving, changing, beliefs have to be able to change with that too to kind of stay adaptable, sustainable, and if we're really refining in that refinement process.